So good afternoon, everybody, and I'm just back from a mission to Ukraine where we met with the Ukrainian leaders. And before I speak, I want to introduce some of whom will speak, some not, but these are leaders of the Ukrainian community in New York and Long Island and Westchester as well. We have Andrew Podubny from Wantagh. He's the president of the Ukrainian American Bar Association. Peter Podubny from Queens, a board member of the American Bar. Oksana Pelek, board member of American Bar, of Ukrainian, each of these is Ukrainian American Bar. Then we have Walter Zaricki, he's president of the Center for U.S.-Ukrainian Relations. Christine Balko, the vice president of the Ukrainian American Freedom Foundation. Arthur Horowitz, who's the vice president of the Ukrainian Institute of America. Anna Kutsina, who's a board member of the Heart of Valor, and and the Firefighter Foundation for Peace, and Walter Drabenko, Council of Ukrainian for Freedoms, Council of Ukrainian for Freedoms Association, Roderick Williams, who's active in the Ukrainian movement from Oyster Bay, Long Island. Okay, so let me say some things here. First, why did I go to Ukraine with 4 other of my colleagues in the Senate? It was an imperative. It was an obligation. It wasn't just a nice thing to do. We went because we're at a pivotal moment in world history. Obviously, the future for freedom of the Ukrainian people is at stake. But there's more at stake than that. This is a turning point, an inflection point as to the United States' abilities to project itself, our power, our strength, our leadership in the world. An inflection point of American leadership. If we stick by Ukraine, our allies will know that we stick by our allies. But on the other hand, if we don't stick by Ukraine, if we abandon them, our allies will say the United States is not a worthy ally and turn on us. Even worse, if we don't give the aid Ukraine needs, dictators, vicious dictators who are out to get America will hurt us. Putin, Xi, the heads of North Korea, the heads of, is the sound all right? Do I have to start over? Is that better? How's this? Is that better? Okay, I'm going to start over. Okay, we're here. I went to Ukraine because, not because it was a nice thing to do or a good thing to do, it was an obligation. It was something that we had to do. There was no ands, ifs, or buts, because we're at a pivotal moment in world history. We're at a pivotal moment for the success of Ukraine. President Zelensky told us, if Ukraine gets the aid, they'll win the war against Russia. But if they don't get the aid, they will lose that war. It is that crucial, and it goes beyond Ukraine. If our allies see that the United States won't stand by its allies, they will not be allies of the United States any longer. And worse, if the evil autocrats, the dictators of the world, who are out to hurt us, Putin, Xi, North Korea, Iran, if they see us abandoning Ukraine, they'll know they can go after other countries because we won't stick by them either. So this is a crucial moment in the history of the world. We had to go. And standing there, when we went there, we told the Ukrainian people, America will not abandon you. We will work, and I will work as majority leader as hard as I can to see that Ukraine gets the aid it needs, because this is a moral imperative. If the United States abandons Ukraine, it will hurt us around the globe politically, economically, militarily, diplomatically. So I told the Ukrainian people, we know how important this is, and we are not abandoning you. We are sticking by you and going to fight and fight and fight until we get the aid. I also told the Europeans, our NATO allies, we are sticking by you. We are not abandoning Europe and NATO. So that is why it was so important. We learned in detail what the Ukrainians need. If they don't get the weaponry, as I said, they will lose the war. And that will be devastating in consequences for the U.S. Right now, they're brave. Their soldiers are amazing. Zelensky's strength is amazing. But they don't have the ammunition anymore. The Russians can fire their artillery much longer than Ukrainian artillery can fire back. So the Russians can stand further back, hit the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians can't hit them back. They desperately need 155 millimeter artillery shells. There's something called ATACMS that will allow them to disrupt Russian supply lines far beyond the front lines. And anti-aircraft. They desperately need more anti-aircraft. They've been great at what they do. Our U.S. Army is learning lessons from the Ukrainians in sea warfare. They basically paralyzed the Russians in the Black Sea. But they're running out of weapons. Their soldiers will fight. Their soldiers will win. One soldier told us he's in a drone area. The drones go see where the Russian artillery is, but they don't have the ammunition to fire back and take out that artillery now. They always did. Why were they able to push the Russians back? Because they're a very strong army and they had all the armaments they need. They're still a strong army, but without the armaments, their hands are tied behind their backs. So we have to get something done. The town that they recently lost, Advivka, would not have been lost had they had enough ammunition and weaponry, plain and simple. We cannot allow it to happen. There are other places the Russians are pushing, and without the armaments, they will not be there. Who holds the key to supporting Ukraine? It's the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Mike Johnson. The Senate showed that we would support Ukraine. We got over 70 votes, bipartisan, strong Democratic and Republican support. If Johnson put the bill on the floor, it would pass. But he is so afraid of the radical right, the hard right in his caucus, it's only about 20 or 30 members, that he has not done it. We are telling Speaker Johnson, history's eyes are upon you. The history of the West is on your back. Do not abandon things. Do not do things for political expediency. Do not show blind obeisance to Donald Trump, who's a pal of Putin's, but Putin will turn on the United States in a minute. Do not let that happen. I've also told I will tell the Speaker, or I've said to the Speaker publicly, visit Ukraine as I did. Any person of decency and honor who sees what I said will support the aid and get it passed immediately, because so much is at stake. One final point I would make. Oh, two more. There are those in the House, these far-right people, who are isolationists. They said, this is far away, we don't have to bother. That's what the world said in 1938 with Hitler. And America paid the price in hundreds of thousands of deaths and billions of dollars spent. That's what people said in 1916 here in the United States. And it prolonged World War I and cost us dearly, leading to World War II. So these isolationists have not learned the lesson of history. We hope that Speaker Johnson will. Finally, I have something personal about this. My ancestors came from Chortkiv, which is a town about 3 hours southeast of Lviv, where we visited. In 1941, the Nazis came in. They told my grandmother, who was well known in the town of Chortkiv, to gather her family on the porch, and 35 members gathered from ages in the 80s to 3 months old. The Nazis said, you're coming with us. She said, we're not moving, and they machine gunned every one of them dead. Okay? That's what happens when you try to suck up to dictators. You can't. Johnson has to learn that lesson. And so with that, I just want to pledge to the people here, to the Ukrainian community in New York City and Long Island and Westchester and all of New York and all of America, we will not stop fighting till we get this desperately needed aid so that Ukraine can win the war. Okay. With that, our first speaker is Andrew Podobny of Wanto, Long Island, president of the Ukrainian Bar Association. Come up to the mic, Andrew. Here you are. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Senator Schumer, for your continued steadfast support of Ukraine. as a Ukrainian American living on Long Island, and as the president of the Ukrainian American Bar Association, a national organization comprised of American lawyers of Ukrainian descent, I come before you here today with a plea for action. The recent events unfolding in Ukraine have deeply shaken me and the Ukrainian American community. Yesterday marked the solemn occasion of the second anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I urge you all, and especially the members of the House of Representatives, to consider the gravity of the situation. The Ukrainian people have faced unimaginable hardships and sacrifices in the face of Russian aggression and tyranny. As we witness the ongoing conflict and humanitarian crisis in Ukraine, it is imperative that we take decisive action to support Ukraine in this time of need. We currently stand, as the Senator stated, at the precipice of a pivotal turning point in this war. We have recently witnessed the withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from the city of Avdiivka, which was the direct result of dwindling military supplies and congressional inaction. The eyes of the world are indeed upon us now to see how the United States, as the leader of the free world, will act. What message do we want to send to our allies and to our adversaries? Do we wish to stand firmly against Russian aggression in support of democracy, sovereignty, international law, human rights, and all the ideals that we as a nation hold dear? Or is our message to Russia and all the other would-be aggressors that they must only outlast our initial outrage to achieve their nefarious objectives? Ukraine is not just a distant land engaged in a foreign conflict. The values and ideals its people fight for are the same as those shared by all Americans. Passing a Ukrainian aid bill is not simply an act of altruism, but a strategic investment in our own national security interests. Supporting Ukraine today prevents us from having to put American boots on the ground in defense of our European allies tomorrow. Therefore, I urge the members of the House of Representatives to act swiftly and decisively in passing an aid bill for Ukraine. The people of Ukraine are counting on us, and history will judge us either by our action or our inaction. Today, let us renew our commitment to standing with Ukraine in its struggle for freedom, democracy, and peace. Let us honor the sacrifices of those who have lost their lives in defense of these principles and send a clear message to the people of Ukraine that they do not stand alone, that the world stands with them in solidarity today and always. Thank you, and Slava Ukraini.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Christine Balko. She's the Vice President of the Ukrainian American Freedom Foundation.
Thank you, Senator Schumer, for your unwavering support and humanitarian aid have been crucial in assisting Ukraine's fight for freedom and democracy. Your recent visit to Ukraine, along with several other Democratic senators, sends a strong message of solidarity and support from the United States. As President Volodymyr Zelensky put it, you are helping us to save democracy. Not only in Ukraine, of course, the fight for democracy and freedom in the world. Your commitment to ensuring that Ukraine receives the aid it needs is commendable, and we appreciate your dedication to this. We encourage the Democrats and Republicans to put pressure on Speaker Johnson to pass the Ukraine package so we all can continue to fight for world democracy. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. Our next speaker is Andrew, nope, sorry, is...
Walter.
Yeah, where's that here?
Walter.
Walter Zaritsky, the president of the Center for U.S.-Ukrainian Relations, and he is from what town?
Manhattan.
Manhattan.
So I'm born and bred.
Not everybody.
Right. Sir, I'm just from the heart, and I want to address this to you, sir, because for the last 20, 25 years, you've come to St. Patty's and have told us our story better than anybody else could possibly do. And you've used the word genocide, something that if it had been discovered 90 years ago, might have avoided the terrible first genocide.
This is a genocide that occurred that Stalin tried to commit on the Ukrainian people in the 1930s by starving them.
Right.
And millions starved to death.
And so it's interesting to have done this because you have been the one that's wrung the Tuscan each time for us. And my suspicion is that if you're doing it now and it's far more in the open. In those days, it was tough to get the message out. Now there is no cover. Putin has done it. He's not only done it in Ukraine, but he's now reaching out and violently taking out, as the fascists did in the 20s, his opponents openly, and daring the world to respond to that. And so, in some ways, you have always, I'm going to say it, you have been our best friend on that hill. And with your leadership, I've got a funny feeling that what we can do, if we can get the three, as you mentioned once, the three mics in the Republican Party, to come together with the Democrats that understand the Euro-Atlantic world, that Euro-Atlantic world that's given us that 75 years of peace that you so arduously worked for. President Biden has, Senator McCain did on his side, and so on. Mitt Romney has been doing that kind, has warned us about the geopolitical threat of Russia. So putting all that together, I've got a funny feeling that if we can get this through, we can avoid a second genocide, though it is already in the making. We're watching it, and therefore I may not only plead with you to finally bring to a conclusion the aid, but also the issue of war crimes and possibly the frozen assets in the Senate, if you can.
You bet. All three
Okay.
against Ukraine.
Thank you very
Against
much.
Russia for Ukraine.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Our
sir.
last speaker is Roderick Williams, active in the Ukrainian movement from Oyster Bay, Long Island.
Thank you, Senator Schumer. I want to thank you for all you've done to support Ukraine. It's as you say, it's a turning point. It's very important, not just for Ukraine to help, but also for, I think, the world and for Americans. You've all spoken very eloquently to the issues. I just would like to add that we do, with some small organizations, Firefighters for Peace and Heart and Valor, hold events to raise money for Ukraine. But more importantly, I think it's important for all Americans to know it's time to stand up and make your voices heard. Generals win battles, but policy wins wars. And so people stand up and make your voice heard.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you very much. So I want to make two more points that I didn't make. One of the most heart-wrenching moments for us when we visited Ukraine this past weekend was going to a cemetery 4 months in Lviv. 4 months ago, it was a parking lot, but they don't have enough room for the cemetery for all the people that Putin has killed, some of which are innocent civilians, and that's why Walter referred to it as genocide, because he's just going after civilians without any military significance. But in any case, we went to this cemetery that had been a parking lot. We saw 100 freshly dug graves of people who had just been buried with their pictures. Men, women, old, young. But then right next to it, they were digging another 100 graves. Because the Ukrainians know what's going to happen here, particularly if they don't get the help. Now, the Ukrainians, this is a very important point, the Ukrainians are not in trouble because of lack of bravery, lack of will to fight, lack of good strategy. They have all three. They are being pushed back by the Russians because of one thing, lack of ammunition and armaments. That's what we supply. Ukrainians are not asking for Americans to come and lose their lives. All they're asking for is the armament so they can fight the battle. It's the least we can do. Questions from the audience? Any questions? Okay. Yes.
I have an off-topic.
Well, we'll do that in a minute. We'll just do one off topic because I want to stick to this subject. Any on this subject? No?
The whole, the House, attached to an individual, the other leader. We're talking about Donald Trump.
Well, Trump has said we shouldn't give aid to Ukraine. He has said nice things about Putin, which is so against American interests. And America will pay the price if we don't stand up to Putin, plain and simple.
So you think that the individuals are
Well,
not helping out because
yes, I think that Speaker Johnson and the others are afraid of Trump. But Trump is so wrong on this issue, as many Republicans in the House know. A majority of the House Republicans are for aid to Ukraine. Off topic.
The government shut down.
Yeah.
Will that mean it's going to happen next weekend?
We Democrats are working as hard as we can and exploring every method to avoid a shutdown. We hope our Republican colleagues will see the light and want to avoid a shutdown too. Okay?
On topic, sir. I've been to Modica shortly after the war broke out in Poland.
Right.
I photographed the refugees. I don't know if a lot of people are aware that about 2 hours north in Poland, about 20 kilometers west of the border,
Right.
we have American troops on the ground.
We do.
I photographed them there.
Yes, I met them. I met them in Poland before I went into Lviv this week. Yeah, we have a lot of, and they're doing the logistics. When the weaponry comes from all of the West, not just U.S., but all of the allies, they make sure it gets to the right place and gets over the border and puts it on Ukrainian trucks driven by Ukrainian drivers. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all.
Do a group photo and then a photo with Long Island.
Okay, so where do we do that? Should we take this down?
Squeeze it. So Manhattan doesn't.
Let's move the entire.
Yeah, why not? That's all right. We can do that. We can do that.
You guys mind if I step in front?
Yeah.